But if I'm being completely honest, I feel like Tom's been such an asshole that I don't want to do business with him.
Hello, John. I have nothing against you personally, but I just think I'm better than you. I just know that I can beat you in a fight.
UFC 309 Media Day has wrapped up, and New York, we have a problem. There's a couple of things I want to touch on in this video. First up, our main story, Jon Jones will not face Tom Aspinall ever. He went out there on Media Day and he pulled no punches. He said that Aspinall and his fans influenced his decision and that ship has sailed. This is borderline parody. This is something that Chael Sonnen has talked about a lot, where when you're nearing the end of your career, you let down the ladder a little bit. You fight down the rankings, or you fight people with less of a name, less prestige, because you owe it to the industry, because someone else did it for you. Tony Ferguson, as an example, took the fight with Charles Oliveira when he was ranked, I think he was just inside the top 10, 8th maybe, and he took that fight because he understood he was coming off a loss. Charles won, and he became one of the biggest stars in the sport, and we had that phenomenal title run and great run that he's on now. Finished Beneil Dariush, very close fight with Arman Tsarukyan, that's aging well. And even within Jon Jones' own career, Shogun Rua didn't have to fight him. There was a couple other contenders ahead of him. Jon was too young. He was unestablished. He didn't have any of the wins. Same thing that he's saying about Tom Aspinall here. And Tom has better wins than Jon had when he fought for the belt. The whole point of the interim title, as pointless as it may be, is to set a clear number one contender. But the word interim means temporary or in the meantime. The idea of an interim champion is meant to build towards the unification of those belts. That's the way it's been forever. That's the way it's going to continue to be. So when you mess with that natural order in the way that Jon has, it just doesn't look good. Everybody else has defended against the interim champion. Unless the interim champion got injured, that's happened a couple times where things don't work out well. So you may be saying, oh, GSP, he left, he didn't fight Robert Whittaker. That would have been a phenomenal fight. Actually matches up kind of very similar to Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall, young up-and-comer, some very good wins versus arguably the greatest fighter in that division in the sport type deal. But GSP hasn't fought since. GSP is retired. Jon's still fighting. Jon wants to fight Stipe and then Alex Pereira, a couple other fights. We're going to get to that in a second. So I don't think those are quite an even comparison. And then punishing Tom Aspinall for the way that his fans have acted towards you doesn't make a lot of sense. And again, it plays into the narcissism of Jon Jones to think that he is above it all and above tradition and he is better than these people, especially when the names he does want to face don't really jump off the page. Alex Pereira is one of the best fighters in the world right now, potentially top 10 all time. I think that's not too crazy to say right now. But stylistically, at heavyweight, because I don't really see Jon moving back down to light heavyweight, that doesn't really interest me. Stipe has wrestling and boxing. Tom Aspinall has wrestling, boxing, jiu-jitsu, right? They can sort of counter Jon Jones. Alex Pereira, not to say that his grappling is horrible, it's improved a lot, but it is not on the level of a Tom Aspinall who's been doing jiu-jitsu since he was 5 years old, or Stipe who wrestled in college, right? It's not quite at that level. So if Alex Pereira doesn't chin him immediately, it's just going to be a Cyril Gane fight again, where he just gets to the clinch, gets to the back, drags him down, and kind of does whatever he wants. Okay, well, that's just one of the names. Who else does Jon want to face? Derek Lewis and Jamal Hill? Shut the fuck up. Derek Lewis has trouble beating some cab drivers, doesn't have great wrestling, and on occasion can get kind of disheartened, quit at times. And Jamal Hill hasn't won a fight in ages. The last fight he won was when he won the belt against Glover. That fight makes no sense. And again, light heavyweights, Jamal Hill out of camp already gets pretty fat, I guess. But then he'd be slower than he already is. That would make his boxing worse. That's the only thing Jamal Hill really has going is his boxing. He'd be slower, he'd be fat, he'd be slow. Jon blast doubles him first round, right? When you're perceived as the greatest, you can make some judgment calls, okay? But this isn't a scenario where you can make those kind. It just doesn't make any sense. GSP and 2010, 2011 says, I want to fight Jens Pulver, like, I want Jens Pulver to come to me, fight at welterweight. Jens Pulver, notoriously small human, 5'7", I believe. I want him to fight at welterweight. Make it make sense, John. Another thing that happened recently, UFC 309 is reverting back to the old gloves. The gloves that don't curve your hands just a little bit. It's not even a dramatic curve. Man, this sucks. Ever since they introduced the new gloves at UFC 302, there have been a lot of complaints, right? The paint chips a little easier. The gloves have been described as a bit tighter in some areas. They aren't too curved. Some people say that they can't get knockouts in them. I think that's just copium. They aren't too curved. They seem to be shaped in a way that makes locking your hands together easier for grapplers. But they're too crazy for Jon Jones. He says he tried them out and they didn't feel right. They curved my fingers downwards. That's the point, John. They stopped me from extending my fingers. That's the point, John. And John is a proud cheater. Look at this clip.
I do poke people in the eyes, and it's very illegal, but I do it.
He knows he eye pokes people. He knows he gives him a competitive advantage. He just doesn't care. This is your GOAT, ladies and gentlemen. He said that a bunch of veterans called Sean Shelby, Mick Maynard, Dana White, and they said, we all want the old gloves. Okay, I'll make sure to ask all the veterans. Veterans like Chris Weidman. Ooh, yikes. Ay caramba, You think Jim Miller was really complaining? He's like, these gloves. No, Jim Miller doesn't care. You could duct tape a roll of napkins to Jim Miller's fists, and he'd still fight. That's about it for Jon Jones Media Day. Let's move on to the man that I believe will win the fight on Saturday night, the pride of Ohio, Stipe Miocic. Stipe responded to Jon getting heated on social media. Jon got angry at Stipe for calling Jon a bitch in passing, and then accused him of paying sparring partners that look like Jon to train with. I don't know about you guys, but not a lot of white people are built like Jon Jones, where their ape index is as crazy as his. So you're probably going to need to find a black guy, like a Robellis Despain almost type guy. And it's not like he put out a Craigslist ad. He kind of just found these people in the Ohio area. Stipe got asked a lot of questions, but throughout all the questions, he was more concerned about his meal than anything they asked. Here is my Stipe Miocic meal breakdown. Unbranded water. Sweet. A chicken and spinach wrap. Now this actually means something, okay? A chicken is another bird like a duck like Jon Jones. Boom, done. Spinach tells me that Stipe is going to use Popeye-level power, okay? Massive arms, massive muscles. Baby potatoes, that reminds me of the Irish potato famine, as in the Irish people, as in the fighting Irish. Yes, you heard it. He's going to take a licking and keep on ticking. And a blackberry tart, I don't think there's a lot going on there, but it's probably pretty tasty, so that's very cool. There's a whole movement of fans online that are also going to the event on Saturday, and they're all going to chant Aspinall. If Jon Jones wins, Stipe is going to win, but I guess that would be pretty sweet. I guess we could see a fluke. Jon wins by a fluke. Eye pokes galore. And then the building just erupts. It calms down a little bit, and people think. Post-fight interview. The crowd begins to roar. Aspinall in the building begins to rush the cage. They're trying to stop him. The security, they're mobbing him. He brushes them all aside. 125-pound security guards, kicks them away. One grabs onto his leg like a small child, kicks him away too. Says, Daddy has to go to work. Hops the cage in one felled swoop and says, Hello, Jon. I'd love to fight you. Can't duck me now, Jon. And Jon says, I'd like to fight, Volkan Ozdemir. And Tom says, I don't think that's going to work for me, Jon. I have a briefcase right here, Jon, that says I have a guaranteed. Anyway, Tom pulls out the Money in the Bank briefcase, cashes in on Jon Jones, and Jon says, I'm not ready. Dana White leaps into the octagon, and he says, no, you can't. And Tom says, I have it in writing, Dana. Dana, you signed it yourself in a drunken rage. And Tom Aspinall wins right there. Pay-per-view goes over on time, but Tom, with his new win money and Nike sponsorship, he pays it. He says, for the good of the company, Dana. And then they all clapped. Well, that's about enough of that. Comment down below if you would also like a blackberry tart. I hear they won't be in season much longer. Like, comment, and subscribe for more MMA content. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a good time.